When you imagine a coral reef, you might picture colorful, rocky structures beneath the waves teeming with fish. But did you ever stop to wonder what those structures actually are? They aren't plants or rocks, but vast colonies of tiny animals called coral polyps. Each polyp is a world unto itself, a small, soft-bodied creature related to jellyfish and sea anemones. Imagine a tiny, hollow sac, attached at its base to the seafloor or to the skeleton of its ancestors. At its top, a mouth opens, surrounded by a ring of delicate waving tentacles that are always ready to catch a meal. These incredible animals are the true architects of the underwater world, building entire cities one tiny piece at a time over hundreds or even thousands of years. The secret to the coral polyp's building ability lies in its remarkable capacity to create its own home. Using minerals from the seawater, specifically calcium and carbonate ions, each polyp builds a hard protective cup made of limestone, also known as calcium carbonate. This stony skeleton acts as its personal fortress, a safe haven from predators and the harsh ocean currents. The polyp can retract its soft body completely into this cup whenever danger approaches, emerging again when the coast is clear. It's this continuous process of building and expanding these limestone skeletons that forms the massive, complex structures we recognize as coral reefs. The living animal is just a thin layer on the surface of a deep history written in stone. But these tiny animals don't work alone. Most reef-building corals have a crucial partnership with microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. These algae live right inside the coral polyp's tissues in a symbiotic relationship, which means they both benefit from living together. The algae are like tiny solar-powered sugar factories. Through photosynthesis they use sunlight to create food, and they share this energy-rich food with their coral host. This extra nutrition gives the coral the energy boost it needs to grow faster and build its strong limestone skeleton. In return, the coral provides the algae with a safe, protected home and the compounds they need for photosynthesis, creating a perfect partnership. This incredible teamwork is also what gives corals their spectacular array of colors. The corals themselves are naturally translucent, and their skeletons are stark white. The vibrant yellows, greens, browns, and oranges that we associate with healthy coral reefs actually come from the millions of zooxanthellae algae living within them. The specific color depends on the particular type of algae present. So, when you see a brilliantly colored reef, you're not just looking at a beautiful animal, you're witnessing a beautiful friendship between an animal and a plant-like organism, working together to create one of the most magnificent ecosystems on our planet. The world of corals is incredibly diverse, with thousands of different species, each with its own unique shape, size, and lifestyle. The most famous are the stony corals, also known as hard corals. These are the master builders of the reef, the primary architects responsible for creating the massive limestone foundations of coral ecosystems. As their name suggests, their skeletons are rigid and rock-like. You can find them in an astonishing variety of forms. Some, like brain corals, grow into huge, grooved spheres that look just like a human brain. Others, like staghorn coral, branch out in intricate tree-like patterns, creating a complex underwater forest that provides shelter for countless other creatures. Beyond the well-known stony corals, there is another fascinating group called soft corals. Unlike their hard-bodied relatives, soft corals do not produce a solid, external limestone skeleton that contributes to the reef's structure. Instead, they have tiny, spiny skeletal elements called spicules embedded within their tissues, which provide them with support and a leathery texture. This flexibility allows them to sway gracefully with the ocean currents. Soft corals are often just as colorful as hard corals, if not more so, appearing like vibrant feathery plumes, leathery fingers, or bushy sea fans. A common example is a group known as dead men's fingers, which forms thick, branching lobes that look eerily like swollen digits. Then we have the horny corals, a group that includes the elegant sea fans and sea whips. These corals are most common in shallower tropical waters and create a very different kind of skeleton. Instead of being made purely of limestone, their internal skeleton is built from a flexible, protein-like material called gorgonin. This allows them to grow into large, intricate, fan-like or whip-like shapes that can filter plankton from the water as it flows past. Precious corals, like the beautiful red coral used for centuries in jewelry, belong to this group. Their skeletons are more dense and are prized for their deep, rich color, which makes them highly valuable. Finally, there are other unique groups like the black corals and blue corals, each with its own special characteristics. Black corals, despite their name, are rarely black when alive. Their living tissue is often brightly colored. The name comes from their dark, protein-based skeleton, which is often shaped like a tree or a whip. They are found in deeper waters and can live for thousands of years, making them some of the oldest living animals on Earth. The blue coral is also unique, as it's the only species in its group. It creates a massive, heavy skeleton of a distinct blue color, forming large lumps on reefs in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Each type of coral plays a specific role in the reef's architecture and health. A coral reef begins with a single, tiny, free-swimming larva called a planula. After being released into the ocean during a mass spawning event, this larva drifts with the currents, sometimes for days or weeks, searching for the perfect place to call home. When it finds a suitable hard surface, like a submerged rock or even the skeleton of a long-dead coral, it attaches itself and transforms into a polyp. This first polyp is the pioneer, the founder of a new colony. It begins to secrete its limestone cup and then starts to multiply. Through a process called budding, the original polyp makes identical copies of itself, and these new polyps remain connected, creating a growing colony. As the colony expands, with new polyps budding and growing on top of the skeletons of their predecessors, the reef structure itself begins to take shape. The older polyps at the base of the colony eventually die, but their hard limestone skeletons remain intact. Over countless generations, this cycle of growth, death, and skeleton accumulation builds up the massive, three-dimensional framework of the reef. The growth is slow, with some of the fastest-growing branching corals expanding only a few centimeters a year. Massive boulder corals may grow even slower, at less than a centimeter per year. It can take tens of thousands of years to form the colossal reef structures we see today, like Australia's Great Barrier Reef. These reefs, built with such patience by tiny animals, are far more than just beautiful underwater gardens. They are the bustling metropolises of the ocean, supporting an incredible amount of life. Although coral reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, they are home to about 25% of all marine species. Fish, mollusks, crabs, sea turtles, and countless other animals depend on reefs for food, shelter, and breeding grounds. The complex nooks and crannies of the coral structures provide the perfect hiding places for small fish to escape predators and a safe nursery for their young to grow. Without coral reefs, a huge portion of marine biodiversity would simply vanish. The importance of coral reefs extends far beyond the ocean's depths, directly benefiting humanity as well. For millions of people living in coastal communities, reefs are a vital source of food and income. They support massive fishing industries and provide livelihoods through tourism, as snorkelers and divers travel from all over the world to witness their beauty. Furthermore, reefs act as natural living breakwaters. Their massive solid structures absorb the power of waves and storm surges, protecting coastlines from erosion and flooding. This natural coastal defense is incredibly effective and saves communities billions of dollars in potential storm damage, making the health of our reefs a critical issue for us all. Despite their size and stony appearance, coral reefs are incredibly fragile ecosystems, and they are now facing a threat unlike any they have ever encountered: climate change. The primary danger comes from rising ocean temperatures. As you'll remember, corals rely on the symbiotic algae living in their tissues for food and color. When the water gets too warm, even by just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius for a prolonged period, the corals become stressed. This stress causes them to expel their life-giving algae. Without the algae, the coral loses its main source of food and its vibrant color, revealing its stark white skeleton underneath. This devastating process is known as coral bleaching. A bleached coral is not dead, but it is starving and extremely vulnerable. If the water temperature returns to normal quickly enough, the algae may return, and the coral can recover over time. However, as global warming causes more frequent and severe marine heat waves, corals are not being given enough time to bounce back between bleaching events. Prolonged bleaching ultimately leads to the coral's death. This is happening on a global scale, with devastating mass bleaching events wiping out huge sections of reefs from the Caribbean to the Great Barrier Reef. The recent scientific consensus, as highlighted by a study on September 17, 2025, is grim, suggesting that without drastic action, corals simply may not survive on a warmer planet. Beyond warming waters, our oceans are also becoming more acidic. The same carbon dioxide emissions that are heating our planet are also being absorbed by the ocean. This absorption changes the water's chemistry, making it more acidic in a process called ocean acidification. This is terrible news for corals and other marine organisms that build shells or skeletons out of calcium carbonate. The increased acidity makes it much harder for coral polyps to extract the minerals they need from the water to build their stony homes. Their skeletons can become weaker and more brittle, and their growth rates can slow down dramatically, making it impossible for them to build reefs as they have for millennia. The future of these vital ecosystems hangs in the balance, and their fate is directly tied to our actions. The primary solution is a global one. We must drastically reduce the carbon emissions that are driving climate change and warming our oceans. On a local level, we can help build reef resilience by reducing other stressors like pollution from coastal runoff, overfishing, and physical damage from anchors and destructive fishing practices. Protecting these underwater cities isn't just about saving a pretty ecosystem, it's about preserving a critical part of our planet's health that provides food, protection, and livelihoods for hundreds of millions of people. We must act now, before these vibrant cities of the sea fall silent forever.